All praises to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and peace to everyone joining us on this program. This is the Fountain of Israel's Bible Studies program, and as always, it's an honor for me to stand before you on the Lord's Sabbath day. Without any further ado, let me just open up by saying that we have just concluded all of the Lord's feasts, festivals, high Sabbaths, annual Sabbaths, in other words, all his holy days. Now, with the close of his holy days comes man's idea for a holy day, which are called holidays. So what we can do is we can gather all the kids together, gather around all the parents, get your kids, and we're going to talk about the holidays a little bit. We're going to talk about all the holidays, because at the conclusion of our holy days, the last one being the 8th day, okay, we start going into Halloween. And we can start talking about Halloween and the origins and what it means and that. You know, little kids, you're dressed up like little ghouls and goblins and everything that goes bump in the night. And it's all about trick or treat and candies. But have we ever been told or researched or searched out the backstory, the origins, where it all began? So parents out there, if you're out there and you hadn't shared the story of it for the kids, because after all, it's for the kids, let's tell them about it. Let's take a look at some of that. Then we can move towards, Thanksgiving and stuff. Where the pilgrims came over and civilized the savages and made a great big feast and everything, and everyone lived happily ever after. One big happy family. And we can't forget about Christmas. That's the biggest one of them all. Santa and his sleigh, jingle bells and silent nights, dashing through the snow. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. But now we got to get the backstory of it all. We've done this before, but we got to do it again, because why? These holidays come around every year. So we got to at least touch on it every year. I mean, when we go to church, do they not, Sunday church that is, do they not put up the tree for Christmas? Do they not have fall festivals? And do they not, do the Easter egg hunts and things like that? So they deal with it every year. So we have to deal with it every year. 'Tis the season after all, right? So let's take a look. So, son, if you will, let's go on over to Revelation. And let's pick it up at chapter 18. And then we'll do a little bit of research. So go to Revelation chapter 18. And I want to read one verse when you get there. Go to Revelation 18, and I want you to read verse 3.
For all nations have drunk of the wine and of the wrath and her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her
delicacies. Okay, so let's take a look at that. We're going to look at a little bit of history, and the first holiday we need to deal with that's coming up just next week's actually. It's called All Hallows Evening. We shorten it to Halloween. It indeed does have some origin. So Halloween, also known as All Halloween or All Hallows Eve or All Saints Eve, is an early celebration observed in a number of countries on 31st of October, the eve of the Western Christian feast of All Hallows Day. Western Christian feast. Do we find this Western Christian feast in the Bible? No. Feast of All Hallows Day. It initiates the Triduum of All Hallow Tide. Okay? The time of the, make sure I get this right. The time in the liturgical year dedicated to remembering the dead, including saints, that's where hallows come from, martyrs, and in the liturgical year dedicated to remembering, all the faithful departed believers. Within All Hallow Tide, the traditional focus of All Hallows Eve revolves around the theme of using humor and ridicule to confront the power of death. Interesting. According to many scholars, All Hallows Eve is a Christianized feast initially influenced by Celtic harvest festivals with possible pagan roots, particularly the Gaelic Samhain. Does this sound biblical yet? Other scholars maintain that it originated independently of Samhain and has solely Christian roots. Now, Samhain looks like Sam Hain, looks like spelled like Samhain, but pronounced Samhain. Typical festive Halloween activities include trick-or-treating or the relating guising, attending costume parties, decorating, carving pumpkins into jack-o'-lanterns, lighting bonfires, apple bobbing, visiting haunted house attractions, playing pranks, telling scary stories, watching horror films. In many parts of the world, the Christian religious observance of All Hallows Eve, including attending church services and lighting candles on the graves of the dead, remain popular, although in other locations these solemn customs are less pronounced in favor of a more commercialized and secularized celebration. Because many Western Christian denominations encourage, although no longer require, abstinence from meat on All Hallows Eve, the tradition of eating certain vegetarian foods for this vigil day developed, including the consumption of apples, cider, potato pancakes, and soul cakes. I'm not sure what soul cakes are. But we want to give our kids the whole story. So what we're doing is we're just getting a little bit of the origins. You know, when we grow up and we have certain traditions and stuff, when we're kids, we rarely ask our parents, well, why do we do this? It's just been tradition. When you do work up the bravery of doing it, the response is just usually, well, that's just how it's always been. That's what we've always done. It's tradition. We've been doing this since whenever, insert year. But we never ask why. Okay? And remember, they said that this is like a Christian festival. Interesting. Historian Nicholas Rogers, exploring the origins of Halloween, notes that while some folklorists have detected its origins in the Roman feast of Pomona, the goddess of fruits and seeds, or in the festival of the dead called Parentalia, it is more typically linked to the Celtic festival of Samhain. It all goes right back there. So you can go and find some other, and then it says it's going to kind of go back to that again, Samhain. Because we want to get to the root, right? Okay, which comes from the Old Irish for summer's end. Happens in the fall, so that makes sense, summer's end. Samhain, pronounced Samhain, S-O-W-I-N, Samhain was the first and most important of the 4 quarter days in the medieval Gaelic calendar and was celebrated in Ireland, Scotland, and the Isles of Man. It was held on or about the 31st of October, November 1st sometimes, and kindred festivals were held at the same time of the year by the Britannic Celts. For example, Caelan Great in Wales, Caelan Gwav in Cornwall, and Caelan Gowan in Brittany. Don't know these names. Samhain and Caelan Gaet are mentioned in some of the earliest Irish and Welsh literature. The names have been used by historians to refer to Celtic Halloween costumes up until the 19th century and are still the Gaelic and Welsh names for Halloween. Now, you guys heard me mention Samhain a couple of times, so I'm going to kind of get into that a little bit, and then we're going to get into scriptures. Meet me over in Revelation chapter 17, and I will be there in just a moment. Samhain is a Gaelic festival marking the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter, or the darker half of the year. It is celebrated from sunset on 31st of October to sunset to November 1st. That's where you get your 31st to November 1st, or about halfway between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice. It is one of the 4 Gaelic seasonal festivals, along with Imbolc, Beltane, and this other name I will simply spell for you, Lughnadh. Historically, it was widely observed throughout Ireland, Scotland, and the Isle of Man. Kindred festivals are held at the same time of the year with other Celtic lands, for example, the ones I mentioned before, in Wales and Cornwall and Brittany. Samhain is mentioned in some of the earliest Irish literature, is also known to have a pre-Christian roots. Interesting. Many important events in Irish mythology, happened to begin on Samhain. It was the time when cattle were brought back down from the summer pastures and when livestock was slaughtered for the winter, as at Beltane, special bonfires were lit. These were deemed to have protective and cleansing powers, and there were rituals involving them. Samhain, like Beltane, was seen as a liminal time when the spirits, or fairies, could more easily come into our world. Most scholars see that Aos, Psi, so A-O-S space S-I, are remnants of the pagan gods and nature spirits. It was believed that the AO and SI needed to be propitiated to ensure that the people and their livestock survived the winter. Offering of food and drink were left for them. Obviously, they made offerings so that the spirits would leave their livestock alone, is what they're trying to say. Offering food and drink were left for them. The souls of the dead were also thought to revisit their homes. Feasts were had at which the souls of dead kin were beckoned to attend and a place set at the table for them. Mumming and guising were part of the festival and involved people going door to door in costume or disguises, guising, often reciting verses in exchange for food, trick or treat. The costumes may have been a way of imitating or disguising oneself from these spirits. Divination rituals were also a big part of the festival and often involved nuts and apples. In the late 19th century, Sir John Rees and Sir James Fraser suggested that it was the Celtic New Year, and this view had been repeated by some other scholars. Last little bit here. In the 9th century, the Roman Catholic Church shifted the date of All Saints' Day to 1st November, while 2nd November later became All Souls' Day. Over time, Samhain and All Saints' Day merged to create the modern-day Halloween. Historians have used the name Samhain to refer to Gaelic Halloween customs up until the 19th century. Drunken with the wine of her fornication. Now, obviously, we know that they're talking about intermixing religions, and religious viewpoint, and mixing doctrine and customs and pagan, and this is what we're talking about. We can see how this creeps into religion. Since the latter 20th century, Celtic neo-pagans and Wiccans have observed Samhain or something based on it as a religious holiday. Pagans and Wiccans see Halloween or Samhain as one of their religious holidays, or something based on it as a religious holiday. Neo-pagans in the southern hemisphere often celebrate Samhain at the other end of the year around the 30th of April, May 1st. So we kind of have an idea, or at the very least, the root of what we're doing when we celebrate Halloween. It's supposed to be just a festival, just a custom and things like that, but it seeps its way into our religious doctrine or our religious way of life. It seeps its way into it. All of a sudden, it has religious connotations. You're already dealing with spirits, the spirits of the dead. So what are we really doing? That's what that all that mixing and mangling and just shoving it all together, and then the church comes by and scoops it up and say, hey, we'll do that too. And if it feels a little bit icky, a little bit weird, then they'll rename it or shift the date a little bit over here or a little bit over there. That's all. Sprinkle a little Jesus on it and, we'll make it okay. But arose by any other name, right? Revelation 17. Let's pick it up at verse 1. Revelation 17 and verse 1. And when you're ready, let the Bible speak. Revelation 17 and verse 1. Go ahead.
Which one? What again?
17 and 1.
And there came one of the 7 angels, which had the 7
Vials.
and talked with me,
Mm-hmm.
saying unto me, Come hither,
Mm-hmm.
and I will show unto you the judgment of the great whore, and sitteth upon many waters.
Okay, so he said, just come check this out. Come take a look at this, and I'll show you the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, many people, many languages, a lot of people. Okay, everyone gets consumed by this. Everyone gets caught up into it. Verse 2.
With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication,
Mm-hmm.
and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication.
So everyone all over the earth has taken a hold of some of these holidays. I know I just talked about Halloween, but if you just put them all together, they're celebrated all over the world, right? It may be called a little something different, but it's the same thing. Have the same root. Everyone just come and do that. And remember what we had read before is that in Revelation 18:3, when he said, For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. So they're all caught up in it, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. So even with the pagan holidays and all these, aren't these companies getting richer and richer and richer? Yeah, all these companies. Look at all the candy companies. Look at the churches. Look at just everything. Look who stands to profit when we observe all these holidays. Has not the candy sales gone up? Halloween's next week, so candy sales have gone up, right? Yeah. Food sales are going to skyrocket too when you get close to Thanksgiving. And then Christmas, then the merchandise of almost everything for Christmas, from toys, electronics. Shoot, even gym memberships go up in January. So, I mean, everyone, it doesn't matter what it is, someone's going to make $1 at the changing of the season. And with each holiday that comes up, someone is making some money. You guys can see that, right? Verse 3, Nick, go ahead.
So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast,
Mm-hmm.
full of names and blasphemy.
Yep.
Blasphemy,
Mm-hmm.
having 7 heads and 10 horns.
Mm-hmm.
And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color,
Mm-hmm.
and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls,
Mm-hmm.
having a gold cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication.
Yeah, because God doesn't like all the things he is seeing. Okay? Now we saw where, the Catholic Church went in, they started dealing with Halloween and stuff, and they said, okay, well, we're going to change it from this day to that day and all this other stuff. So we see how most people, especially the Western Hemisphere and the Protestant movement, all these Protestant churches and stuff like that, pretty much follow what Mother Church has done. They hate to admit that, but they do. They hate to admit it, but they do. And everything she has done, we have done. It's that simple. A Protestant denomination will pop out and say, okay, well, we don't like this, so we're different. But they do everything else. Then someone will branch off for that one and say, well, we don't like that, but they keep everything else. Still the daughter of the same Mother Church. So, let's take a look here. Go to Deuteronomy 7. Deuteronomy 7. The point is, at some point, we got to break the cycle. At some point, someone's got to wake up and say, you know what, why are we doing this? Let me look behind it. Let me just take a look. Okay, I'm doing it. I'm celebrating it or whatever. Okay, so where does it come from? I mean, that's what we got to do. Most people fancy themselves as Christians. Okay, if you do, then at least look behind what you are doing or what you call tradition. Where did that tradition come from? And if it's good and it's clean and it's holy, you continue. If not, you pump the brakes. You stop. You say, you know what? Let me get off this train. I don't want to head in this direction, and I'm not going to teach it to my kids. So let's go to Deuteronomy 7. And when you get to verse 25, let the Bible speak. Deuteronomy 7, verse 25. Go ahead.
The graven images of their gods shall ye burn it with fire.
Mm-hmm.
Thou shalt not desire the silver or gold that is on them,
Mm-hmm.
nor take it unto thee,
Mm-hmm.
lest thou be snared therein.
Mm-hmm.
For it is an abomination to the Lord thy God.
Okay, all this other stuff, all those graven images, all that stuff. You come into a land, hey, don't get caught up with that. Now, even Paul uses it as a teachable moment when he saw all these statues that was dedicated to all these different gods in Mars Hill, because this is where intellectuals would meet and talk about philosophy and things like that. He used that to his advantage. He didn't go worshiping or anything like that, but he looked at all their devotions. He said, you know what? I was looking at all your devotions, all these statues, all that. Roman occupation, so you probably saw some Zeus and whatnot. So, but I noticed you guys have one that's blank and you just have a plaque and it just said to the unknown God. Let me tell you about that God. See, he just kind of used it, put it in a way that they would understand. Okay? But the graven images of their gods, little g, ye burn with fire. That's how much he detests it. No crosses. So when you go to Walmart and you see the guys out there in their carts and table and they have a bunch of crosses and all that. Sorry. I can't help you with that. I can't buy that. All that you burn in fire, thou shalt not desire the silver or the gold that is on them, nor take it unto thee, lest thou be snared therein. You're going to get caught up into it, for it is an abomination to the Lord thy God. It's abomination to Yahweh. Continue.
Neither shalt thou bring an abomination into thine house, lest thou be a cursed thing like it.
Oh, get that out of your house. Go ahead.
But thou shalt utterly detest it.
So, any of these graven images, it's okay if you hate those images. It's okay. The nativity scene, you can, yeah, no. Detest that. All the little crosses and stuff. Y'all, you guys don't want to know how many crosses I had to get rid of. Man, it's a lot. Continue.
And thou shalt utterly abhor it, for it is a cursed thing.
It is a cursed thing. That's how it goes. Sorry. That's just how it goes. Go to Deuteronomy 18, son. Deuteronomy chapter 18. Chapter 18. And when you get there, pick it up at verse 9. Chapter 18, verse 9.
When thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations.
Okay, so when you go and you're on vacation and you're like, hey, you know how the old saying goes, when in Rome, do as the Romans. Not always. Not always. Don't do that. You go somewhere and they're doing, ritual rain dancing or something like that. You don't want to get into that, They say, hey, we're going to do a seance. You want to come and join us? No. No, thank you. You guys can have that. Right? So don't do what they do. Thou shalt not learn to do after the abomination of those nations. Okay? I've gone in people's homes because my business has to do with appointments. I go in people's home and they have shrines. Just shrines in there. No, I won't be kneeling and sprinkling holy water and all that. No, I won't be doing all that. Okay? Keep going.
There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth
divination,
or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch.
Or a witch. He said, there shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire. I know some of you parents out there want to have your daughter pass through the fire because of their behavior, but you can't do that, okay? That's wicked too. Or use divination, or an observer of times. They want to look at the stars. They want to try to tell you your future and all that other stuff. Or enchanter, or a witch. Who else? What else?
Or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits.
Crystal ball, Ouija boards, palm reading. Go ahead.
Or a wizard, or a necromancer.
Someone who speaks to the dead. Can't do that. Go ahead.
For all that do these things
Mhm.
are an abomination unto the Lord.
It is.
And because of these abominations,
Mhm.
the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee.
Okay, let's go to Deuteronomy 31. Deuteronomy 31. He doesn't want us dealing with this kind of stuff. Okay? Amen. You got to pick up on the abomination part. You're like, hey, he really doesn't like this. He really doesn't. So it would behoove us if we just take this warning and stay away from it. Now, you have people say, well, we don't have to, do the law. Okay, this is something that he hates. And so now we can just do this all willy-nilly if we want to. Now it doesn't apply anymore. He doesn't hate it anymore. We can go whoring after other gods. We can have graven images and idols and stuff. We can worship. We can talk to necromancers and charmers and witches. We can go to tarot readings and all that. So that's okay. We can do all that now. It was bad then, but it's okay now. I want all of you to consider the implications when someone say, well, we don't have to do that.
The same yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Exactly. Same God, yesterday, today, and forever. I am God, I change not. Old Testament, New Testament, same thing, right? So be careful when if you're going to let someone talk to you, get in your ear, a little spirit that just tells you, no, yeah, man, it's okay, no big deal. No. We saw a show a couple of months back or whatever, and they were on vacation in New Orleans, and half the group would say, okay, hey, yeah, let's go get our palms read, and all of a sudden the other half was like, no, I don't do that. Not doing it. Oh, it's no big deal. They're like, nope, not doing it. And the more they pressed, the more they said, look, we're going back to the room. You guys do that. Matter of fact, when you're done, don't even tell us about it. I don't want to hear about it. That was the attitude. That's the attitude you remember now. That's the attitude we got to have. Same, just like, look, if you want to do it, fine. I don't want to do it. You don't really even have to tell me about it. I don't want nothing. I don't want nothing to do with that. It's just that simple. Deuteronomy 31, let's go to verse 14. Deuteronomy 31, 14. When you get to 14, let the Bible speak.
And the Lord said unto Moses,
Mm-hmm.
Behold, thy days approach that thou must die.
Mm-hmm.
Call Joshua and present yourselves in the
Tabernacle
of the
Congregation. Mm-hmm.
that I may give him a charge.
Mm-hmm.
And Moses and Joshua went
Mm-hmm.
and presented themselves in the tabernacle of the congregation.
Okay, so Moses and Joshua went and presented themselves in the tabernacle of the congregation. What else happened?
And the Lord appeared in the tabernacle in a pillar of a cloud.
Yes.
And the pillar of the cloud stood over the door of the tabernacle.
What else?
And the Lord said unto Moses, Behold, thou shalt sleep with thy fathers,
Mm-hmm.
and this people will rise up
Mm-hmm.
and go a whoring after the gods of the strangers of the land,
Mm-hmm.
whether they go to be among them,
Mm-hmm.
and will forsake me,
Mm-hmm.
and break my covenant which I have made with them.
Here we go. We're talking about a covenant, which I'll be dealing with that next week. We're talking about a covenant. But what was the first thing he said? He said, okay, Moses, I'm going to put you to sleep. Joshua, I'm going to put you in charge. But when I do that, look at what's going to happen. Okay? That's basically what he's saying. Okay? And the Lord said unto Moses, Behold, ye shall sleep with thy fathers, and this people will rise up and go whoring after the gods of the strangers of the land, whither they go to be among them. Because he's going to be around other people. Okay? And other people have different customs, different traditions. And then the Israelites, who have their own God, is going to be wondering, well, how do you guys worship your gods? Well, why do y'all do that? Oh, that's interesting. Wow, that looks fun. Let's go do that. Okay? And break my covenant which I have made with them. Continue, verse 17.
Then my anger shall be
Kindled.
against them in that day,
Mm-hmm.
and I will forsake them,
Mm-hmm.
and I will hide my face from them,
Mm-hmm.
and they shall be devoured,
Mm-hmm.
and many evils and troubles shall befall them.
We had remember we had that lesson about the evil and stuff like that. It said many evils will, trouble, calamity, disaster, stuff like that. But anyway, many evils and troubles shall befall them. Go ahead.
so that they will say in that day,
Mm-hmm.
are not these evils come upon us,
Mm-hmm.
because our God is not among us?
Oh, look at how it happens. These evils are coming, are falling upon us, or coming among, because our God is not among us, because God is not here, because God is not with them, because of the covenant that they broke. And why? It's because of idolatry. It's because of the fornication, because they're going after other gods and looking at all these other customs. I gave you instruction, Torah. I gave that to you. Follow that, I will bless you. You don't need this other stuff. The end thereof is death for the rest of these other nations, well, in their customs. Is what he's trying to tell them. Okay? Verse 18. Go ahead.
And I will surely hide my face in that day for all the evils which they shall have wrought,
Mm-hmm.
in that they are turned unto other gods.
Right. Go ahead.
Now therefore write ye this song for you,
Mm-hmm.
teach it the children of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Put it in their mouths,
Mm-hmm.
that this song may be a witness for me against the children of Israel.
Okay. Let's go to Judges 2. Let's go to Judges 2. This is what we have to understand. Let's forward. Go to Judges chapter 2. And this is what we all have to understand. That we start doing as the other nations, that we go the way of the world, it can get us in trouble. Scripture says, love not the world, right? Okay. Because everyone else is doing it, doesn't make it okay. It's that simple. Just because they're doing it doesn't make it okay. In fact, where the many go, most of the time it's been the wrong direction. Judges chapter 2, and pick it up at verse 10. Judges 2 and verse 10.
And also all the generation were gathered unto their fathers.
Mm-hmm.
And there arose another generation after them,
Yep.
which knew not the Lord,
Mhm.
nor yet the works which he had done for Israel.
Forgot all about Israel. Forgot all about what God had done for their parents before them, or the generations before them. Forgot all about that. And what happened?
And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord,
Mhm.
and served
Baalim.
Baalim.
So they served another God, right? Okay, go ahead. Let's see what else happened.
And they forsook the Lord God of their fathers,
Mm-hmm.
which brought them out of the land of Egypt,
Mhm.
and followed other gods,
Little G,
of the gods of the people that
Mhm.
were round about them,
Mm-hmm.
and bowed themselves unto them,
Mm-hmm.
and provoked the Lord into anger.
So look at what they said. So they forgot Yahweh. Okay? They forgot Elohim. Okay? They forgot the mighty one of Jacob. Forget that. We want to know, what are the other gods doing? What about, the Egyptian god? What about the god of Baalim? What about Ashtaroth? What about Ishtar? What about all that? What about all these other gods? That's what we want to know about. We want to hear about the other gods. That's what they want to learn about. But what they do in 13?
And they forsook the Lord,
Mhm.
and served Baal and
Ashtaroth. Okay, what else?
And the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel,
Yep.
and he delivered them into the hands of spoilers that spoiled them,
Mm-hmm.
and he sold them into the hands of other enemies round about,
Mm-hmm.
so that they could not any longer stand before their enemies.
That's right. So they couldn't. So you know what? Israel was a small nation compared to the other nations. Even Scripture even says, I picked you not because you were great in number, but because you were a few among all the nations. They were a real small nation. But they can win any battle when you got God on your side, right? Okay? But then when he takes his hand away from that, when he takes that hedge of protection, when he stops fighting your battles for you, the other nations will overtake you. It's that simple. Okay? Continue.
Whithersoever they went out, the hand of the Lord was against them for evil,
Mm-hmm.
as the Lord had said, and as the Lord had sworn unto them,
Mm-hmm.
and they were greatly distressed.
Yep.
Nevertheless, the Lord raised up judges,
Mm-hmm.
which delivered them out of the hand of those that spoiled them.
Okay, that took advantage of them, that overtook them, that captured them, that conquered, that beat them down. Okay, that's what spoiled mean. Okay, totally took advantage of them. Okay, so it says, nevertheless, the Lord, Yah raised up judges, which delivered them out of the hand of those that spoiled them. Okay, see, one of the things we got to understand is that, remember, they had a covenant. Remember who broke it. And remember who's still keeping his part of the covenant. He could have let them, he let them get beat down for a while. But then he says, okay, let me save my children. Pretty merciful, right? Pretty merciful. Had every right to just let them all be just slaughtered. They broke the agreement anyway. He's not bound by it, but because he's a good, just, merciful God, he has to cut that short. He has to say, you know what? Okay, that's enough. But let's see how we all respond. That was 16, 17.
And yet they would not
hearken
unto their judges.
Which means listen. They would not listen unto their judges, but what?
But they went a whoring after other gods, and bowed themselves unto them. They turned quickly out of the way which their fathers walked in.
Yep.
Obeying the commandments of the God of the Lord. But they did not so.
They did see. So when you read when Israel getting their head kicked in, you see why. There's a reason why they keep getting their teeth kicked in, because he gives them a chance. They don't want to listen. No, let's see what these other gods. We read in the scripture, we read one where they go crying after God, and God say, no, go ask those other guys to help you. Go ask Balaam or Ashtaroth or somebody else. Go. You over there weeping for Tammuz, go let him help you. It just gets ridiculous. That's what we do. Let's go one more place real quick. Revelation 21. Now, if you guys read Judges, you're going to see it. You're going to think you're reading the same chapter. Every time you go up a chapter, you're going to read, and they forsook God and went after other gods, and God let their enemies overtake them, and then God delivered them. You're going to hear the same thing. Chapter after chapter after chapter after chapter until you get around up there where Samson is. But it gets crazy. Revelation 21. Okay, he does not want some of these things. Let's see, he's going to be the type of people who are going to be on the outside of the kingdom. Revelation 21, pick it up at verse 7. Chapter 21, verse 7.
He that overcometh shall inherit all things.
You overcome all this stuff that's coming. 'Tis the season. If you overcome this, you shall inherit all things. Go ahead.
And I will be his God, and he shall be my son.
Go ahead.
But the fearful.
Now, not these people. These people want to inherit all things. Go ahead. But the fearful.
And the unbelieving, and the abominable, and murderers, and whoremongers.
Who else?
And sorcerers, and idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death.
Okay, now we know who's not going to make it. You don't want no part of this, people. But if you overcome, you can inherit all things. Overcome this wicked world. Overcome what's coming up, what's coming before us, starting next week. Overcome that. Love not the world or the things therein, right? Let's look at what's the holiday that comes after Halloween? What's the other major holiday after Halloween? Thanksgiving. All right. Well, I'm gonna talk about Thanksgiving a little bit since you guys asked for it. Okay. I heard somebody say Thanksgiving, so let's talk about Thanksgiving. Okay. Now, Thanksgiving, okay, is known by another name. Does anybody know the other name it's known by? By our Native American brothers. Day of mourning. That's exactly what it is called. So when the average American is getting together to do Thanksgiving, they don't look at it from our Native American brothers' perspective. Because they are not doing the same thing on that day. What are they going to be thankful for? Genocide? What is there to be thankful for? So, let's take a look at that. Now, this is an article by Munanum James and Mahataran Monroe. These are Native Americans, okay? And Native American historians here. And they wrote, Every year since 1970, the United American Indians of New England have organized the National Day of Mourning observance in Plymouth at noon on Thanksgiving Day. Every year, hundreds of Native people and our supporters from all four directions join us every year, including this year. Native people from throughout the Americas will speak the truth about our history and about current issues and struggles we're involved in. Why do hundreds of people stand out in the cold rather than sit home eating turkey and watching football? Do we have something against Harvest Festival? Of course not. But Thanksgiving in this country, and in particular in Plymouth, is much more than a harvest home festival. It is a celebration of the Pilgrim mythology. Remember, this is someone else's perspective. This is from the perspective of people who are on the other side of the table of the Pilgrims. Okay, remember every story got two sides, right? We never got the other side. We never did, but we're going to get some of it right now. According to this mythology, the Pilgrims arrived, the native people fed them and welcomed them, the Indians promptly faded into the background, and everyone lived happily ever after. I know that is a real brief summation, but that's pretty much what we learned. The Pilgrims showed up, and the natives, they all ate together and had turkey. And, of course, the first Thanksgiving meal wasn't turkey, but that's besides the point. Had turkey and all that, and that was it. Pretty much. But let's look at some more. The truth is a sharp contrast to the mythology. The Pilgrims are glorified and mythologized because the circumstances of the first English-speaking colony in Jamestown were frankly too ugly. For example, they turned to cannibalism to survive. Didn't tell you that about the Thanksgiving story, did they? Okay? They turned to cannibalism to survive, to hold up as an effective national myth. The Pilgrims did not find an empty land any more than Columbus discovered anything. He says that because people are already here. Okay? Every inch of this land is Indian land. We can't argue with that. Okay? Is Indian land. The Pilgrims, who did not even call themselves Pilgrims, did not come here seeking religious freedom. They already had that in Holland. They came here as part of a commercial venture. They introduced sexism, racism, anti-lesbian, gay bigotry, jails, and the class system to these shores. They did because before they got here, they didn't have any of that. Okay? One of the very first things they did when they arrived on Cape Cod, before they even made it to Plymouth, was to rob Wampanoag graves at Corn Hill and steal as much of the Indians' winter provisions of corn and beans as they were able to carry. They were no better than any other group of Europeans when it came to their treatment of the indigenous people here. And no, they did not even land at that sacred shrine called Plymouth Rock, a monument to racism and oppression, which we are proud to say we buried in 1995. The first official day of Thanksgiving was proclaimed in 1637 by Governor Winthrop. He did so to celebrate the safe return of men from the Massachusetts Bay Colony who had gone to Mystic, Connecticut to participate in the massacre of over 700 Pigot women, children, and men. About the only true thing in the whole mythology is that these pitiful European strangers would not have survived their first several years in New England were it not for the aid of the Wampanoag people. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. What native people got in return for their help was genocide, theft of our lands, and never-ending repression. We are treated either as quaint relics from the past or are the most people virtually invisible. How many full-blooded Native Americans you see walking around? Not many. Oh, they're there, but not many. So they don't celebrate Thanksgiving the way the average person celebrates Thanksgiving. They don't view Thanksgiving the same way the average person views Thanksgiving. What exactly do they have to be thankful for? And that's the problem. I know this makes some people uncomfortable. I know that. But I'd rather have an uncomfortable truth than a comfortable lie. It's that simple. Now, if you know the truth and you still celebrate it, more power to you. But don't celebrate a lie. That's all I'm saying. Don't celebrate a lie. Let's look at it a little bit more. You have all the kids gather around because we're listening to the Thanksgiving story now. Can we give thanks for the fact that on many reservations, unemployment rates surpass 50%? Our life expectancies are much lower. We're talking about our native brothers and sisters. Our infant mortality rate and teen suicide rates much higher than those of white Americans. Racist stereotypes of Native Americans, such as those perpetuated by the Cleveland Indians, the Atlanta Braves, and countless other local and national sports teams, persist. Every single one of the more than 350 treaties that Native nations signed has been broken by the U.S. government. The bipartisan budget cuts have severely reduced educational opportunities for Native youth and the development of new housing on reservations, and have caused us deadly cutbacks in health care and other necessary services. Now, we don't listen to that because this is not our problem. We're not on a reservation. We don't feel, the pull that they have, the struggle that they have, the going back and forth with the government from their perspective. Don't get me wrong, we have our troubles, but what I'm saying is that we don't know their troubles. We're not Native American. We don't live on a reservation. We don't know. We haven't stood in lines and trying to get some sort of reparation, some sort of help, something. So we haven't had that experience. But now you're getting it from people who have that experience. Are we to give thanks for being treated as unwelcome in our own country? He asked. Or perhaps we're expected to give thanks for the war that is being waged by the Mexican government against the indigenous people there, because you have indigenous people there. So you're talking about people who rule over there, or people from Spain, like America got conquered, right? So the people rule here from Europe, right? Ran by Gentiles over there, ran by Gentiles over here. You don't even have to look that far back in history because it's current. And always has been. Since they invaded. Who's our last Native American president? I'll wait. With their military aid of the U.S. in the form of helicopters and other equipment. When the descendants of the Aztecs, Maya, Inca flee to the U.S., the descendants of the washed-ashore pilgrims term them illegal aliens and hunt them down. Okay? Remember, Aztec, Maya, Inca, these were native. They were already there when the Spaniards got there. They were already there. We object to the Pilgrim's Progress Parade and to what goes on in Plymouth because they are making millions of tourist dollars every year from the false pilgrim mythology. Now, it would be nice if they did that and then just gave all the money to the descendants of those victims. Then it would be okay. But you think that happens? Come on now. Let's be adults here. That money is being made off the backs of our slaughtered indigenous ancestors. Increasing numbers of people are seeking, meet me in 1 Corinthians, son. 1 Corinthians. Increasing numbers of people are seeking alternatives to such holidays as Columbus Day and Thanksgiving. They're coming to the conclusion that if we are ever to achieve some sense of community, we must first face the truth about the history of this country and the toll that history has taken on the lives of millions of indigenous, Black, Latino, Asian, and poor and working class white people. The myth of Thanksgiving, served up with dollops of European superiority and manifest destiny, just does not work for many people in this country. As Malcolm X once said about the African American experience in America, we did not land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. And he says, exactly. Okay, that article can be found on www.uaine.org. 1 Corinthians chapter 10. 1 Corinthians chapter 10. Okay? Now, everyone likes to use Paul, and Paul pretty much says we can do anything, especially if their stance is we don't got to obey anything. Okay? If that's their stance, it means we can just do anything, just believe. That's it. That's all Paul's doctrine anyway. Just believe. He was trying to get us away from that oppressive law and just believe in Christ. 1 Corinthians 10, we're going to pick it up at verse 14. Let's see what he says right there in verse 14. What does it say?
Wherefore, my dearling beloved, flee from idolatry.
Wait. Idolatry is in the law. So why would he tell you that? When you look in Torah, God says he don't want you to do idolatry. I mean, he's telling you burn down these idols and stuff like that. Don't do this. Don't talk to... So are we not supposed to flee from idolatry now? Well, if Paul said it, I guess it's okay. Wherefore, my dearly beloved, flee from idolatry. Drop down to verse 20. Verse 20, what does that say? But I say what?
But I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils, and not to God.
So when you sit down to that Thanksgiving turkey, they sacrifice the things that the Gentiles do. They sacrifice to devils. Oh, I know this makes some people uncomfortable. I don't care. Now that you know what Thanksgiving means to some people, how about when you sit down to that turkey at Christmas? Now the things the Gentiles do that they sacrifice to devils, not to God. So all the, I like to thank Jesus for this turkey and my family and all this. No. You're sacrificing the devils. It's that simple. I don't care what you call it. I don't care. Well, I'm not sacrificing. They call angels gods, little g. If you're not doing it the way he prescribed it, then you're not doing it to him. You're not doing it for him. Okay? I mean, when Cain wanted to sacrifice or offer what he wanted to offer, it was not accepted. So you don't get to do it your way. Well, I'm going to do Christmas anyway. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pray really, really hard and dedicate all that to the real, true God of the Bible. Because it's about where my heart is. No. You can sprinkle Jesus on it all you want. It's the same thing, okay? It is idolatry. So what you say, son, it says, but I say unto you that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils and not to God. Continue.
And I would not that ye should have fellowship with devils.
Go ahead.
Ye cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of devils.
No.
Ye cannot be
partakers
of the Lord's table and of the table of devils.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do these God holy days. I'm going to do those because that's in the Bible, but I'm still going to do my Halloween and my Thanksgiving and my Christmas and my Easter and my... What I just said doesn't coincide with what the Bible said, now does it? It doesn't go together. Especially when he says, you cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of devils. Ye cannot be partakers of the Lord's table, holy days, and of the table of devils, holidays. They don't go together now, do they? They just don't mix. You can't do it. They don't mix. Son, go to Deuteronomy 18 for me. No, actually go to, because we were already at Deuteronomy 18. Go to Luke 2. Go to Luke 2. Okay, just meet me there. I'll get there in just a second. Because we know over in Deuteronomy 18, which we were there before, we already know when it says, when thou come into the land which Lord thy God has given thee, or Yahweh has given thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abomination of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or daughter to pass through the fire, or to use divination, or an observer of the times, or an enchanter, or a witch, which some of these things we dress our little kids up with for Halloween, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord, and because of these abominations, the Lord thy God does drive them out from before thee. Okay, so he doesn't like those type things. We also saw right there in Corinthians that we can't mix the two. You're going to do one or the other. Didn't the Bible say he'd rather you not be lukewarm? Make a decision. Yeah. He says, I'd rather you not be lukewarm, be hot or cold. You with me or you against me? So anybody straddling the fence, guess what? You've made a decision by default, and you made the wrong decision. What we can read, he said, let the righteous be righteous still. Let the filthy be filthy still. Y'all, you know where I'm going, right? So you got to make your decision. So let's go ahead and take a look at Christmas and Easter just a second. Let's read a little bit of that. Okay, these are the most well-known and oft celebrated holidays of man. So let me read a little something. Every year after Thanksgiving, most people's thoughts turn to Christmas. Is that not true? Pretty much. Exactly. You know what? It's not even October 31st yet. Raise your hand if you've seen some Christmas decorations already shopping. Okay. So we know this statement is true. Every year after Thanksgiving, most people's thoughts turn to Christmas. It is the time when professing Christians are supposed to be focused on Jesus Christ. After all, it is the Christmas or Christ Mass season, right? Christmas is thought by most to be a wonderful time, focusing the participants on giving, family togetherness, beautiful music and decoration, feasting on special foods, and singing Christmas carols throughout the neighborhood. This is an article, as my family did every year. All of this is supposedly centered around the worship of Christ. Surely the Bible instructs us to do all of this right. No takers. Why do people think that Christmas is wonderful? Most never reflect on why they believe what they believe or do what they do. I said that earlier. Won't even think about it. Why do we do it? Some people actually think kids come out of the womb talking about, what about Christmas? They forget we teach them about that. They forget that. They would know nothing about it, at least not in their home, if we didn't teach it to them. But we forget that. Do we live in a world filled with customs, but few ever seek to understand their origin? Yes, we do. We generally accept them without question. Most people basically do what everyone else does because it is easy and natural. Let's carefully examine the roots of Christmas. Let's look at why people follow the customs associated with it. Why is it kept on December 25th? Did the early New Testament church keep it? This article is filled with facts from history that, when placed together, paint a complete picture. Let's avoid all assumptions and only accept what can be proven. I like that approach because I prefer the things that can be proven, leaving out all personal biases and speculation. So let's take a look. Nearly all aspects of Christmas observance have their roots in Roman custom and religion. Big surprise there, isn't it? Consider the following admission from a large American newspaper, the Buffalo News. Okay, this was back in 1984. But it says the earliest reference to Christmas being marked on December 25th comes from the 2nd century after Jesus' birth. It is considered likely the first Christmas celebrations were in reaction to Roman Saturnalia, a harvest festival that marked the winter solstice, the return of the sun, and honored Saturn, the god of sowing. Saturnalia was a rowdy time, much opposed by the more austere leaders among the still minority Christian sect. Christmas developed, one scholar says, as a means of replacing worship of the sun with worship of the sun. By 529 AD, after Christianity had become the official state religion of the Roman Empire, Emperor Justinian made Christmas a civic holiday. The celebration of Christmas reached its peak, some would say in its worst moments, in the medieval period when it became a time for conspicuous consumption, and unequaled revelry. Consider these quotes from the Catholic Encyclopedia 1911 edition under Christmas. Christmas was not among the earliest festivals of the church. The first evidence of the feast is from Egypt. This is getting interesting. Gather around, kids. Further, pagan customs centering around the January calendars gravitated to Christmas. Under Natal Day, Origen, an early Catholic writer, admitted, in the scriptures, no one is recorded to have kept a feast or held a great banquet on his birthday. It is only sinners, like Pharaoh and Herod, who make great rejoicing over the day in which they were born into this world. Encyclopedia Americana 1956 edition adds, Christmas was not observed in the first centuries of the Christian church, since the Christian usage in general was to celebrate the death of remarkable persons rather than their birth. A feast was established in memory of this event, Christ's birth, in the 4th century. In the 5th century, the Western Church ordered the feast to be celebrated forever on the day of the Mithraic rites of the birth of the Sun, S-U-N, and at the close of the Saturnalia, as no certain knowledge of the day of Christ's birth existed. So, why do we do it? Why do you celebrate Christmas? They will give you every excuse in the world, but they cannot give you the date of his birth. That's fine by us because we don't celebrate the day of his birth. Doesn't affect us one whit. But when you ask, why do we do it? You're going to have a hodgepodge of answers. Let's continue. It was 300 years after Christ's birth the Roman Church kept Christmas, and not until the 5th century that it was mandated to be kept throughout the empire as an official festival honoring Christ. We know he wasn't born on December 25th. We know this. We do. We know this. And since we know this as adults, let's not teach it to our kids. Okay? Let's just do that. Was Christ born on December 25th? Of course, we know that is no. Christ was born in the fall of the year, right? Closer to the holy days. Many have mistakenly believed he was born around the beginning of winter, December 25th. They are wrong. Notice that Adam Clark Commentary, Volume 5, page 370, New York edition. It was custom among Jews to send out their sheep to the deserts about the Passover, which is early spring, and bring them home at the commencement of the first rain. The first rain began in early to mid-fall, continuing with the same quote. During the time they were out, the shepherds watched them night and day. As the first rain began early in the month of March, which answers, wait a minute, I'm missing my slides. Okay, March, which answers the part of our October and November, begins sometime in October. We find that the sheep were kept out in the open country during the whole summer. And as the shepherds had not yet brought home their flock, it is a presumptive argument that October had not yet commenced. And that, consequently, our Lord was not born on the 25th of December when no flocks were out in the fields, nor could he have been born later than September as the flocks were still in the fields by night. On this ground, the nativity in December should be given up. The feeding of the flocks by night in the field is a chronological fact. See the quotations from the Talmudist in Lightfoot. Okay, so I say go to Luke 2 and 8. Luke 2 and 8. Let's look at some of this of what they were just claiming. Okay, Luke 2 and 8. I just want one verse. Verse 8.
And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night.
So the article kind of lines up. Shepherds in the field, tending their flock by night, like that, right? So let's go to Ezra. We're going to look at that a little bit more, but we're going to go Old Testament real quick. Ezra. In the chapter in Ezra we want is chapter 10. Ezra chapter 10. I'm going to start wrapping this up. Get you some more scripture. Now, we're a little scripture light because we got to do a lot of research. We got to dig down in this stuff, okay? We got to get really down into it. So let's look at Ezra 10. Pick it up at verse 9. Ezra 10, verse 9.
Then all the men of Judah and Benjamin gathered themselves together unto Jerusalem within 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
It was the 9th month of the 20th day of the month.
Mhm.
And all the people sat in the street of the house of God,
Mm-hmm.
trembling because of this matter,
Mm-hmm.
and for the great rain.
Now they're starting that great rain that they're talking about. That's how long they kept the flock in the field. Then when the great rain started coming, they started breaking the flock out. But this is starting to give you an idea of the time of the year. Okay, we getting a little bit of understanding? Okay, go ahead, continue.
And Ezra the priest stood up
Mm-hmm.
and said unto them,
Mm-hmm.
Ye have transgressed and have taken strange wives,
Mm-hmm.
to increase the trespass of Israel.
Mm-hmm. They talking about pagan wives, okay? Strange wives are just those pagans. They do all kinds of other stuff. Go ahead.
Now therefore make confession unto the Lord God of your fathers, and do his pleasure, and separate yourselves from the people of the land,
Yep.
and from the strange wives.
Get rid of all these. You cannot. It's not when in Rome, do as the Romans. Don't do that. Go ahead.
Then all the congregation answered and said with a loud voice,
Mm-hmm.
As thou hast said,
Mm-hmm.
so must we do.
Go ahead.
But the people are
many.
The people are many, and it is a time of much rain,
Time of much rain.
and we are not able to stand without.
Mm-hmm.
Neither is this a work of one day or two.
Mm-hmm.
For we are many that have transgressed in this
And
thing.
okay, so we messed up big time. They were telling Ezra, look, we messed up. It's a lot of us, and everything that we have to do to get right, we can't do it in a day or two. And now this is a season of great rain. Now it's a whole lot of rain, you know. Now you can continue and read the rest of the story, but I was trying to give you guys like the time of year, picture the time of year. So this article pretty much lines up with they're looking at what's going on at the time, and that's how we kind of can narrow down this is the roundabout time when our Messiah was born. Okay, we don't need the exact day. We don't need the exact day. I mean, we don't. Okay, because we know he comes from everlasting to everlasting anyway, so it doesn't matter. He didn't need a birth date. Okay, we just got to be thankful that he came in the first place. Let me read a little bit more. Meet me over in Deuteronomy 4. Deuteronomy 4. So, numerous encyclopedias plainly state that Christ was not born on December 25th. The Catholic Encyclopedia directly confirms this. In all likelihood, Christ was born in the fall. A lengthy technical explanation will prove this point. Since we now know that December 25th was nowhere near Christ's actual birthday, where did the festival associated with this date come from? Let's look at this. Now read this quote under Christmas in the Roman world. The Saturnalia, which is December 17th, was a time of merrymaking and exchanging of gifts. That sounds like a holiday people celebrate today. Merrymaking, exchanging of gifts. Okay. Saturnalia, no problem. We know that's the time of year. December 25th was also regarded as the birth date of the Iranian mystery god Mithra, the son of righteousness, the S-U-N of righteousness. On the Roman New Year, January 1, houses were decorated with greenery and lights, and gifts were given to children and the poor. To these observances were added the German and Celtic Yule rites, with the Teutonic tribes penetrating into Gaul, Britain, and Central Europe. Food and good fellowship, the Yule log and Yule cakes and greeneries and fir trees and gifts and greetings all commemorated different aspects of this festive season. Fires and lights and symbols of warmth and lasting life have always been associated with the winter festival, both pagan and Christian. Encyclopedia Britannica, 15th edition, volume 2, page 903. A final quote about the selection of the December 25th as the birthright of Christ is necessary. Note an article in the Toronto Star, December 1984, by Alan Edmonds entitled "We Owe a Lot to Druids, Dutch." The Reformation cast a blight on Christmas. By then, of course, clever ecclesiastical politicians had adopted the pagan midwinter festival as the alleged birthday of Jesus of Nazareth, and thrown in a few other pagan goodies to make their takeover more palatable. December 25th was not selected because it was the birth of Christ or because it was even near it. It was selected because it coincided with the idolatrous pagan festival Saturnalia, and this celebration must be carefully examined. In any event, we do not know the exact date of Christ's birth. While God certainly could have made it known, he chose to hide it from the world's eyes. Sounds fair enough to me. It's that simple. We don't know. Someone had asked me one time and said, well, when is Christ's birthday? It doesn't matter. I don't know, and it doesn't matter, and it doesn't affect me anyway because I don't celebrate his birthday. Yeah, neither did he, neither did the apostles, neither did Paul. Nobody. Oh, but it's for Christ, but it's for the children. Why not? He didn't. None of them did. Deuteronomy 4. Pick it up at verse 10. Deuteronomy 4 and 10.
Especially the day that thou stoodest before the Lord thy God in
Horeb.
When the Lord said unto me, gather me the people together,
Mm-hmm.
I will make them hear my words,
Mm-hmm.
that they may learn to fear me all the days that they shall live upon the earth,
Mm-hmm.
and that they may teach their children.
Mm-hmm.
And ye came near and stood under the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire unto the midst of heaven,
Mm-hmm.
with darkness, clouds, and thick darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord spake unto you out of the midst of the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Ye heard the voice of the words, but saw no
Similitude.
only ye heard a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And he declared unto you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform.
Okay, and he said, and he declared unto you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform.
Even 10 commandments.
Even 10 commandments. So that's the covenant he's talking about. He's very specific about that covenant, right? Go ahead.
And he wrote them upon 2 tables of stone.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments, that ye might do them in the land,
Mm-hmm.
whether ye go over to possess it. Take ye therefore good heed unto yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
For ye saw no manner of
Similitude.
on the Lord, that the Lord spake unto you in Horeb,
Okay.
out of the midst of the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Lest ye corrupt yourselves,
Mhm.
and make you a graven image
Mm-hmm.
and similitude of any figure,
Okay.
the likeness of male or female.
Right. No shape. So none of the little Christian fish, none of that. No crosses, no Mary, no angels, none of that stuff. Okay? None of that. And he's going to get very specific. How do you know that, Robert? Well, let's look at what he says. Verse 16. Lest you corrupt yourselves, lest you wreck yourself, mess yourself up, do yourself some harm, whatever, spoil yourself. Lest you corrupt yourselves and make you a graven image, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of a male or a female. Continue.
The likeness of any beast that is on the earth.
The fish.
The likeness of any winged fowl that flieth in the air.
Like the dove.
The likeness of anything that creepeth on the ground.
Anything.
The likeness of any fish that is in the waters beneath the earth.
Mm-hmm. There you go. There's your little Jesus fish right there. Go ahead.
Unless thou lift up thine eyes unto heaven,
Mm-hmm.
and when thou seest the sun
Mm-hmm.
and the moon
Mm-hmm.
and the stars,
Mm-hmm.
even all the host of heaven,
There go your angels right there. Even all the hosts of heaven. Go ahead.
shouldest be driven to worship them
You will want to worship them. Go ahead.
and serve them,
Mm-hmm.
which the Lord thy God hath divided unto all nations under the whole heaven.
He doesn't want you to do that. Doesn't want you to do that. I don't want you to do any of that. Don't make a likeness of anything. I was with you. You didn't see a similitude of me. Okay? You didn't see that. You fire, smoke, you saw that, but you didn't see anything else. Didn't see me look like a fish. Didn't see me look like a bear, a lion, or any of that. Didn't see me look like a dove. None of that. Don't do it. Exodus 34. Let's go to Exodus 34 real quick. Do a little bit more and we're done. Exodus 34. Exodus 34, pick it up at verse 10. 34 and 10.
And he said, Behold, I make a covenant.
Mhm.
Before all thy people I will do marvels,
Mm-hmm.
such as have not been done in all the earth,
Mm-hmm.
nor in any nation.
Mm-hmm.
And all the people among which thou art shall see the work of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
For it is a terrible thing that I will do with thee.
Go ahead.
Observe thou that which I command thee this day.
Mm-hmm.
Behold, I drive out before thee an Amorite,
Mm-hmm.
and the
Canaanites.
Canaanite,
Mm-hmm.
and the Hittite,
The Hittites.
the Hittite,
The Perizzites.
and the Perizzite, and the
Hivites.
and the Jebusite.
Mm-hmm.
Take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land whither thou goest,
Mm-hmm.
lest it be for a snare in the midst of thee.
So you're going to get caught up. If you make an agreement with the people in the land where you're about to go, where I'm sending you, is going to get you caught up and snared. Okay? Go ahead.
But ye shall destroy their altars,
You're going to destroy their altars,
break their images,
break their images,
and cut down their groves.
cut down their groves. What else?
For thou shalt worship no other God,
Mm-hmm.
for the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
whose name is jealous,
Yes.
is a jealous God.
The name is jealous, is a jealous God. And why not? I did everything for you. Why would I want you to go worship somebody else, another God who did nothing for you? Go ahead.
Lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land,
Mm-hmm.
and they go a whoring after their gods,
Mm-hmm.
and do sacrifice unto their gods,
Mhm.
and one call thee,
Mm-hmm.
and thou eat of his sacrifice.
And thou eat of his sacrifice. So you can't even eat their sacrifice. Huh. So don't even eat that. Okay, go ahead. What else?
And thou take their daughters unto thy sons,
Mm-hmm.
and their daughters go a whoring after their gods,
Mm-hmm.
and make thy sons go a whoring after their gods.
Mm-hmm.
Thou shalt make thee no molten gods.
You shall not do that. Okay? So the mixing of your faith is not a good idea. Okay? Race, not that big a deal, but the mixing of your faith is a big deal. Because why? It's going to cause you to go a whoring after other gods. Right? Because that's what's going to happen. It'll cause you to go a whoring after other gods. Go to Ezekiel 8. And let me read a little bit about this Christmas tree. No article about Christmas is complete without some explanation of the Christmas tree. Because that's the centerpiece. I know they say it's Jesus, but come on. It's about the tree and the presents. Okay? No article about Christmas is complete without some explanation of the Christmas tree. We have touched on it without directly focusing on it, but the modern Christmas tree originated in Germany. But the Germans got it from the Romans, who got it from the Babylonians and the Egyptians. That's why I've looked at some Egyptian hieroglyphics, and I noticed a couple of trees in some of their hieroglyphics and stuff. I thought that was interesting, so I can see how that can definitely happen. The following demonstrates what the Babylonians believed about the origins of the Christmas tree. An old Babylonian fable told of an evergreen tree which sprang out of a dead tree stump. The old stump symbolized the dead Nimrod. The new evergreen tree symbolizes that Nimrod had come to life again in Tammuz. Among the Druids, the oak was sacred. Among the Egyptians, it was the palm. And in Rome, it was the fir, all these trees, which was decorated with red berries during the Saturnalia. Okay, this is Walsh. Curiosities of Popular Customs, page 242. Frederick J. Haskins answers the question. The question states, the Christmas tree is from Egypt and its origins date from a period long anterior to the Christmas era. Did you know this? That the Christmas tree long preceded Christianity. I knew that. Most aspects of Christmas are not referred to in the Bible. Of course, the reason is that they are not from God. They are not part of the way he wants people to worship him. The Christmas tree, however, is directly mentioned in the Bible. We're going to go to Jeremiah 10 in a second. Matter of fact, we can go to Jeremiah 10. Do I have it already here? We'll go to it in a minute. We know what that is, so we'll go back to that. The plain description of the modern Christmas tree is clear. God directly refers to it as the way of the heathen. That's what the Christmas tree is. The way of the heathen. Because in Jeremiah 10, he says, go not the way of the heathen. Okay, don't go like the other nations. Just as directly he commands his people to learn not the way of the heathen, calling these customs vain. They are for nothing. I'm doing it for the kids. I'm doing it for Christ. It's for Jesus. Don't you want to honor Jesus? Don't you believe in God? It doesn't matter if you have a Christmas tree and you're saying all that. It doesn't matter if he doesn't want you to do it. It's okay. If you offer it the way I told you, you do well. Will it not be accepted? Forgive my paraphrasing. But you get what I'm saying. He said, "Oh Lord, I know that the way of man is not in himself. It is not in man that walks to direct his own steps." Okay? God must teach people how to live. Man simply cannot figure out God's ways for himself. That's what the article says there. We're going to look at this some more. I said Ezekiel 8, right? Okay, Ezekiel 8, and I want to pick it up at verse 10. Ezekiel 8 and 10. We're going to go 10 through 14. When you get there, Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 10. Go ahead. Because it mentioned in that article, you know, it got transferred over to Nimrod come back to life as Tammuz. Go ahead.
So I went in and saw, and behold, every form of creeping things,
Mm-hmm.
and
Abominable beast,
and all the idols of the house of Israel,
Mm-hmm.
portrayed upon the wall round about.
So that's all he saw in there in the temple now. Nothing but abominable beasts. Now, when you go to if you want to know what they are, you just go to the dietary law and look at the ones that are unclean. These are abominable beasts, right? Go ahead. Verse 11.
And there stood before them 70 men of the ancients of the house of Israel,
Mhm.
and in the midst of them stood
Jezniah,
and the son of
Saphron,
with every man his
censer.
in his hand,
Mm-hmm.
and a thick cloud of incense went up.
What else?
Then said then said he unto me,
Mm-hmm.
Son of man, hast thou seen what the ancients of the house of Israel do in the dark?
Mm-hmm. When they do, have you seen what they do when they think no one's looking? What they do in the dark? Go ahead.
Every man in the chambers of his imagery.
What does he imagine within himself? Go ahead.
For they saw the Lord seeth.
They say, the Lord seeth not.
Seeth us not.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord hath forsaken the earth.
Okay, see, the Lord's not even around anymore. He's not watching. The Lord seeth us not. Okay? He's not even around anymore. 13.
He said also unto me, turn thee yet again,
Mm-hmm.
and thou shalt see greater abominations that they do.
What else do they do? Go ahead.
Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house,
Mm-hmm.
which was toward the north.
Mm-hmm.
And behold,
What happened?
there sat women weeping for
Tammuz.
Tammuz.
Weeping for Tammuz. Why? Weeping for Tammuz. Now we'll go to Jeremiah 10. And we'll wrap it up. Let's go to Jeremiah 10 and we'll wrap it up. Okay. I played a game with someone, and it's kind of funny. What's going to happen, okay, when you get to Jeremiah 10, what's going to happen when you start asking them about Christmas or whatever, or when people learn the truth of Christmas, and they learn about the Christmas tree in Jeremiah 10, what they do, they grab Jeremiah 10 and they show it to people instantly, and they get shut down. Because they're like, well, no, that's not, that's not the tree. Oh, but that's something else. That's what they do. The problem is you go right at them with Jeremiah 10. They already have a block because they want their Christmas. You cannot take away their Christmas. But what you need to do, a better approach would be, is you play a little bit of charades to them. Don't talk about Christmas and stuff. And then you describe this. You describe Jeremiah 10 and ask them, what is this? What does this sound like? And when Christmas tree come out of their mouth, then you can proceed. When you say it, it's speculative. When they say it, it's gospel. So let's look at Jeremiah 10:1 and then just describe it to them first. Play a little charades. You say, what am I doing? What does it look like I'm doing? I'm going over here, I'm heading over here. Obviously with charades you can't talk. But I'm going I got this big, sharp, what I'm doing. Oh, you're sawing something. Okay, yeah. Okay, dragging it, posting it back up, decorating it, doing all that. Now, see, they're going to start getting the picture. And then you say, okay, now let's read this. Do the whole thing and let's read this. Okay? Jeremiah 10:1. Go ahead.
Hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen.
Don't do what the heathens do. Go ahead.
And be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. For the heathen are dismayed at them.
They wonder after that stuff. You don't do that. Go ahead. What does he want us to do?
For the customs of the people are vain.
Oh, okay. Now he's going to tell us one of the customs that they do. So one of the customs are vain. We're doing, it's for the children. It's for Christ. But he said one of these particular customs are vain, for nothing. Waste of time. Go ahead.
For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of a workman with the axe.
Yep, working it with that axe. What else?
They deck it with silver and with gold.
Deck it with them silver and gold, have the tinsel and everything. What else happens?
They fasten it with nails.
They put that stand at the bottom there so it doesn't what?
And with hammers. That it move not.
That it doesn't move, okay.
They are upright as the palm tree.
All right, they're upright as the palm tree. What else?
Speak not.
Yep, they don't speak.
They must needs be born.
You have to move them. Go ahead.
Because they cannot go. But not afraid of them.
Be not afraid of them. What?
Not afraid of them. For they cannot do evil. Neither also is it in them to do good.
They don't do good or you. They don't do anything. It's just there. It just grows like that. That's simple. Skip down to 14. Verse 14.
Every man is brutish in the knowledge.
Yes, he is. What else?
Every founder is confounded by the graven image.
They are confounded by that. You see a beautiful tree. They're so pretty now. They are so pretty. Smell good. Got that little pine chew. Even if you get a plasma, you can buy a can of pine. You can get that Christmas smell going real good. Your wassail and your cider and all that stuff. Fascinating. Go ahead.
For his molten image is falsehood,
Mm-hmm.
and there is no breath in them.
No, it's not. Go ahead.
They are vanity.
Yes.
And the work of
They're vanity and the work of errors. Go ahead.
In the time of their visitation,
Mm-hmm.
they shall perish.
All of that's going to come to naught. All of that is going to come to naught. It's a waste of time. Parents, save yourself some money. Because all the other stuff is a waste of time. Just save yourself some money and headache. You really think I want to go out in those lines and go out there on Black Friday and get in a fight with somebody to go buy some toys? Really? It's not worth it. They say what it means, but it no longer even means what they say it means anymore. Right? Doesn't even mean what they say it means. You know what your eyes see differently. So they don't even believe in what they're saying. They're just doing it because it is tradition. It is intoxicating. It's attractive. We all used to do it because for a time it was attractive. Gifts and ribbons and wrappings and the music and the carols and all that other stuff that got you into that spirit. None of which the Lord wants us to do to honor Him. He said that they're vain. So if you don't want to tell the kids the origins behind these holidays, we won't get into Easter right now. I'll tell them. Put them in front of this video. Grab the popcorn. Turn the lights down low. And let's read the real history and origins Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Halloween, or All Souls Day, All Hallows Eve, the National Day of Mourning, and a winter Saturnalia. I really sincerely hope you've got some edification out of this. So until next time, search the scriptures and your history books. Improve all things.